Castles and Abbey Legends of Britain by Bob. This week we're looking at Knaresborough Castle in Yorkshire and the legend of Eugene Aram. A cold and luring February evening in the year 1744 was just about closing in, the shadows beginning to creep up darkly and cloudily from the east and north, indicating the approach of a night of sleet or heavy snow, when two men, warmly and cosily wrapped up in the staid and respectable tradesman's broadcloth of the period, the square skirt and the cocked hat indicating a remote fashion, might have been seen walking briskly towards the old keep, crowning the hill on which the ruins of Knaresborough Castle stretched themselves in grey, and just then with an awe and aspect of stern, sullen dignity. Like men who were familiar with every section of the interior which was otherwise not known to the world generally, they cautiously descended besides the keep into a hideous old dungeon, and thence, after traversing a labyrinth passage by a sallyport into a covered way beneath the moat, damp, foul and repulsive as this subterranean spot in which they now found themselves necessarily was, and to which they had directed themselves by the furtive gleams of a dark lantern one had taken from beneath a horseman's coat. They sat down upon some fragments of stone which had fallen from the arch of a small chamber, belonging to the secret hiding place or ancient way of escape or surprise which this castle, with others of the period, possessed, and there began a conversation evidently as mysterious as the place was aptly chosen for the depository of their dark secret. The first of the two was a bluff, jovial-looking man of middle age, whose off-hand manner might at first be taken for frankness, only that there was a coarse and sensual expression lurking about the mouth, and a cunning and crafty light shining in the eyes, which never looked you right in the face, and destroyed the first favourable impression. Dressed as he was, he had the air of a thriving tradesman. His name was David Clark, and he was a shoemaker in the town of Knaresborough. His companion, Richard Houseman, a somewhat younger man, was a flax dresser of the same town. A horseman's whip and riding coat, together with his bespattered boots, showed that he had only recently dismounted from his nag after returning from a journey. So, Dick Houseman, you've kept time, eh? And the matter goes swimmingly, does it? Asked Clark with a chuckle. Just as you could wish, old fellow. I sold the leather you sent me to York with, and a quantity of the cloth there also, and I have just come from Ripon, where I disposed of my flax. You've got Aram's bond, haven't you? Oh, yes, drawn on his friend Mr. Norton. So I shall give him £20 tonight before going to the cave in order to keep him quiet and lull suspicion. He fell into the trick as easily, bless you, as if, instead of being the clever fellow he is supposed to be, he was more than half a fool and as soft as any sponge. Take care he don't suspect you or distrust his wife, or else you may wake up the fiend in him. He's not quite so shallow as you think. I know that he had a disagreeable sort of life to lead with his flighty lady, and if you don't dream that you and she are old sweethearts, it will be as well to keep that dark." Houseman spoke this in a warning tone and in an earnest manner. "Ah, that's all right," returned Clark. "Besides, as we've buried some of the goods in his own garden," he was surely enough at that till I told him it was to avoid a search from my creditors, and I got my wife's money. "The fear of finding that out will keep him still." "Well, has it come, your wife's expected money?" demanded Houseman anxiously. "Aye, it has. £150, which I'll bring to Aram's tonight, when we go to the cave for the plate." I was a bit frightened, though, for my missus had a qualm. "Have you sent her away for a day or two?" broke in Houseman, with an applauding laugh and a nudge of the arm. "Sent her for a week to her friends, till I get the house ready for our wedding feast. Ha, ha, ha." And the knave laughed in his low, chuckling manner at the success of the base scheme of trickery that had been in progress for some time and was now rapidly tightening. He had not quite counted upon the harvest he might reap, however. Houseman again grinned his applause, and Clark proceeded. "Well, there's about 500 to 800 ounces of plate, cups, tankards, dishes, and all come in, and there it lies snugly buried at the very heart of the cave, beaten up and broken in pieces like old pewter. I've seen to that, and all's ready for tonight, and Aram to be with us to the last. Do you see?" I see," responded Houseman. "Egad, it was not a bad idea for you and me to pay off our debts in this fashion, for deuce another way could we do it than by leg bail and making our own creditors help us off. Pity Amram must have the 20. I promised it him for books, you know, and 'twill stave off old Norton from hunting me yet a bit. And someone must be on the spot till we get the plate sold off. You see, when I found Abram had married that precious wife of his, I thought she might aid me one day or another. It has come. I'm very fond of her for old time's sake, and was to have married her once. Well, in America she'll help me in a scheme I've got. Never mind that now. Amram's is a quiet school-mastering fellow, poor enough with her extravagance, as all your bookmen are, and I'm his bondsman too, in turn for some wormy old volumes he's had from York. I thought my wedding spree would pay, and Mrs. Clark, as is, had altogether by her good 200, as you know. Aye, said Houseman, but zounds, it's very chilly here. I brought a drop of brandy with me, and taking out a flask with a shudder for a keen blast when driving with a melancholy wail through the rained arches at the moment, he handed it to his companion, who drank in turn. Ah, that's better, continued Daniel Clark. Well, you see, my credit through my wife being good again, only there's too much to pay, and as she helped me to be on friendly terms with Aram, he gave me a letter to some of the gentry folk, as he has taught, and the innkeepers who trusted. Ha, ha, ha. Why, the plate is right, and Aram is the man who will answer all questions. And his detestable chuckle again followed this explanation. And so Aram's wife goes with you, does she? Asked Houseman. Meets me in Harwich in a week, and brings what she can lay her hands on. Aram thinks of nothing but his books, and does like a child all he's told. Why, none but he would have believed the story that in the parliamentary wars they buried a lot of plate down the well here, and then carried it through under the river to St. Robert's Cave, where, sure enough, there is some, and broke it up to carry it away and sell it. He'll help us, for all be hesitant. It's a fine, says I to him, and it's ours as well as anyone else's, and as a share will drop to you, I says. Why, you may as well have it. Don't you see, Dick, how square the story tells? Excellent, Dan, excellent. Still, I like not the woman's part in it. I'd rather— We can't alter it now, was Clark's hasty interruption. Any change would spoil the whole plan, and delay after tonight would ruin us. I've got a cart and a horse in the old stables by Grimblebridge, and the plate won't be much to share among us to carry off from here and then drive off. Are the tools in the cave? Asked Houseman. Everything, pick and spade, hammers, sacks, all right, and provisions for a jolly supper before we start. But come, let us to the cave for an hour, make some arrangements, then separate just as we may settle. I must see his wife for a minute or two first, as I wasn't sure you'd be back tonight. And now, leaving the associates to concert still more perfectly their infamous design, we shall introduce the reader to a third person in this remarkable criminal story. This is no other than Eugene Aram, whose name for more than 100 years has been associated with obloquy and the violent death of Clark. But as the evidence against him was wholly circumstantial, we hope to show that he was the victim of an infamous conspiracy and of the sanguinary and merciless tendency of the penal code of that day, as we find it to have existed in England up to the commencement of the present century at least. We are glad to find it is much more merciful and forbearing now.